I think. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Then
Hmm.
I'll just check.
Yeah, yeah.
You're live. So, guys, in the off chance that we might already be live, I'm just confirming the same.
We are, I think. I can see it on the YouTube link.
Oh, great, wonderful. So, I'm gonna like, chalo, so what I assume कि हाँ वो हो गया हो, and let's get started. So, hi
Yeah.
everyone. So another learner talks episode this Sunday, and this time we have Arghya Chatterjee, one of the students of our pilot batch of Sluggers, and I think the thumbnail must have talked about given some prior introduction at least to what Arghya has been able to achieve has achieved this year already. He has topped the CAT exam with the XAT exam with a 99.98 right overall, and in
Yeah.
VRC and in the I think the XAT people call it verbal and logical ability, right? VLA section.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so चीज वही होती है लोग अलग अलग बुलाते हैं. So anyhow, so yeah, so and among other things, and obviously with a great CAD person, CAD 99.48, something that I believe he hopes to top in
Yeah.
the upcoming times. And yeah, and I think so Arya, you also converted all of your calls. Uh,
Yeah, all of the calls that I had have been converted, which include the best calls would be FMS, I am Indore, I am Lucknow, and other than that, I am Shillong and all the other
XLR,
PBIs and Excel, BM, and HRM as well.
right? So yeah, perfect. So take it. So we'll have an interest. I'm sure we'll have an interesting discussion today. And
Hi, looking forward.
so I'll hand it over to Arghya to just putting up a very simple question, which I think most of the learners should be able to relate to. कि जब आपने preparation शुरू किया, so when you started preparation and like what was your perspective towards CAT as such or maybe VRC? You can focus on any of the section जैसे भी
Yeah.
जो सही लगे वैसे. And how like I basically want to understand about your journey starting from जब से शुरू किया preparation and उसके बाद until the point where we are right now. And you have the stage.
Okay. So the idea for CAT was there in college third year itself. I knew that I wanted to change into the management domain. तो वहाँ से the first initial days were gathering information from college seniors and people who have done well in CAT. But which changes radically once you get involved in the process because everyone has their own strategy, have their own preferences. But yeah, for me, that's how it started. And I think I had around 3-4 months preparation before I interacted with you. So that was one phase. And things changed after. And I'll be pretty frank about this. So I knew that English would be a comfortable zone for me because I had some habit of reading books. I wouldn't say that I have been a very voracious reader, but I certainly read more books now than I used to do when I was in my third or fourth year. And that has a lot to do with the kind of interest I developed later on, which we had eventually discussed in all our classes. But I knew that it's not something that's entirely new. There have been comprehensions that we have been doing in board exams as well. So the idea of what a comprehension is, it's basically a passage followed by certain questions. That I knew that is there, okay. And when it came to QA, there was some idea gathering information that what exactly comes in the quantitative section. And DILR is obviously a tricky part. So that took some time to understand that what the section actually wants from you, what are the strategies that you can apply to this section. Anyway, so the first couple of months when I started preparing, that was more practice oriented than mock oriented. But initially, the things that I did wrong, I think, is somewhat that majority of the learners, since I've myself been in the process, is we try to focus a lot on things that are not really providing much of utility. So when we talk about BRC section, there is I personally know students who have been involved with a lot of providers, and they focus a lot on the very nitty gritty details of vocabulary. So there is obviously the need for vocab, but you need to understand that there is an optimal point beyond which it's not going to add any further utility to it. So the idea that so that is what something I was initially doing, that understand every bit in terms of a micro zoomed kind of thing, and then figure out what the details are. And it's not going to give you that jump. It is, you're going to get to some point, and after that you're going to get stuck. And that is what happened with me as well. So I wanted to break away from that chain, and luckily I came across your content. So from there, what changed is you look at RC as more of a contextual thing rather than picking up every word and trying to understand whatever is being said, trying to understand every idea that is being conveyed. So it's more of like we used to do in class. It's more of understanding the block of information that is provided to you from a contextual level. So I'll give an analogy, thing that we discuss as boulders in RC. So there will obviously be blocks in an RC that you don't understand. There will be sentences that are not very clear to you. There will be a set of ideas that are not very clear to you. But that doesn't mean that the majority of the RC is not clear to you. So from that section, you just understand, maybe you have 5-6 sentences that you're not understanding at all. So you just take a contextual idea that, okay, this is probably the author is trying to say this here. He's probably agreeing with whatever he has said previously, or he's probably differing a bit from that. And you move on. You go to the questions, you understand what the questions are asking from you. And if at all, there is a question from that section. Otherwise, there's no point in trying to focus all your thing there. And I think what majority of us used to do is we used to get too stuck into that set of 4-5 sentences. We focused all our maybe 12 minutes of time there, not realizing that we are sacrificing a lot more questions that could have been easily converted. So the idea of having more of a it's sort of, you apply lubricant to the axle of the wheel, right? So it keeps moving. If it gets stuck at one point, you don't start chiseling away the iron bits that are there. You move on from that point. You realize that those hiccups will be there along the way. So, and also the thing that when it comes to VARC, so when I was initially starting off, what I used to do is, I think majority of the learners encounter problem in the options, in eliminating options when it comes to VARC. So you understand the passage, and there is obviously some amount of subjectivity involved when you are dealing with a passage. So maybe it's a passage by Immanuel Kant, let's say. It's a piece of writing by Immanuel Kant, or it's a piece of writing by Ayn Rand, or any particular philosopher or sociologist, scientist, whoever it is. So that person has conveyed a certain idea, and we understand bits and fragments of it in our own way. Now, when it comes to the options, it might not be exactly coherent with what we have thought it to be, because there will be a certain extent of subjectivity involved. Now, what majority of the students do, and what is usually done, the practice that is currently followed by a majority group, is that they try to zero in on the right option without realizing that the other 3 options are the problem. The right option is not the only thing that I'm going to look at, because that is not the only thing that is creating the problem in the question paper. If the right answer was so obvious, the average accuracy in VARC would have been pretty high. It would have been as high as QA. But it doesn't happen because there is a problem in eliminating the other options. Now, that is something that became clear eventually, once again, through our classes, that there is a way to eliminate certain options. There are certain very predictable errors that are committed. Let's say the kind of errors that we usually spot, whether there is an error of inference, whether there is a cause-effect reversal. These are very common errors that are usually presented in the CAT question paper, and as well as in the mock papers. It's just that no one highlights it that way. So when I was in class with you, I realized that, okay, there are some patterns even in the erroneous options. So, and it's not about finding the right option, it's about eliminating the wrong options. At least that's been one radical change in my VARC approach. That is from moving from finding what the right answer is, because from my personal standpoint, I believe if there is 2 options that you're stuck between, you're stuck because both those options have certain amount of correct elements in it, and certain amounts of elements that are not exactly coherent, and you wouldn't agree with it entirely. Now, if you get stuck in that wheel, you're not going to come out of it. So you need to realize which one has a more erroneous thing, which one is more coherent with what the author is trying to say, and which one is more coherent with the question statement that is there. Once again, something that we usually refer to as going back to the question stem, understanding what the question stem is expecting out of us. So these are very minute details, but these minute details add a significant jump to the questions. So let's say out of these, you get 4, following these methods, you get 4 questions correct that you were previously getting wrong because you have started to identify the kind of error that is there. So you add 16 marks to your overall score.
Correct.
That is a significant jump. That is the difference between a 99.9 percentiler and a 99.5 percentiler, or a difference between 99.5 and a 98.7. So it's an unbelievable jump that happens. And most interestingly, that jump doesn't take much time to happen.
Correct.
Once you spot the error, it's a very radical jump. So for that, like I'll be very honest and thankful to Sluggers for that.
Yeah, so I agree, and see, elimination. See what the thing is. There's a very simple underlying principle behind attributing more value to elimination than selection, and the principle is this: कि कोई भी मुद्दा हो जाए, उसमें between any two people on any two topics, you'll always be able to find more disagreements than agreement, right? Like so you and I like हम लोग कोई भी topic अगर उठाएं, so if let's say we take a topic about let's say the repercussions of chasing ESG goals, let's say sustainability goals कि क्या repercussions हो सकते हैं. अब वहाँ पे like it might be difficult for us to figure out what are the points of agreement कि हाँ इसमें दोनों agree करेंगे, but हाँ like what should be right कि सही चीज क्या है वहाँ पे हमारा agreement होना sure नहीं है, but गलत क्या है वहाँ पे we are very sure कि भाई ये तो नहीं हो सकता. Right. So and exactly so when you're so the passage is essentially a topic where the question setter has a certain point of view and you have a certain point of view, and now how they have interpreted something and how you have interpreted something, the concurrence between that might not necessarily always be exact.
Yeah.
In fact, exact तो कभी भी नहीं होगा. But वहाँ पे जो tweak किया जा रहा है, the tweak that they undertake, like कुछ change को थोड़ा सा modify करके गलत option बना दिया, वहां पे there will definitely be a concurrence कि नहीं ये तो पक्का नहीं है. क्या नहीं करना है वो अगर पक्का हो तो क्या करना है वो तो like.
And the funny thing is that there is a very predictable nature to those tweaks.
Correct.
There is only a certain number of ways in which they can tweak the question, because otherwise it will lead to controversy.
Exactly.
And they cannot afford to do that. So once you realize that, ठीक है, these are the number of errors that can happen. And once you start realizing that pattern, it almost becomes like very clear to you. Maybe not in 100% of the questions, but even if that happens in 14 or 13 out of 16 questions, you have pulled out the exam to the best possible limit.
Correct. I agree. In fact, I will share a very simple creative जो मैंने यहाँ पे बनाया है, with respect which matches with what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
So एक छोटा सा analogy है. So think of this Mona Lisa painting as your RC. ये आपका RC है. मान लो कि there is a certain idea that the author has tried to convey here by the passage. Now, when you're looking at this from a unordered perspective or a beginner's perspective, like ठीक है जैसे हाँ कुछ पढ़ा निकल के कुछ समझ में आया, काफी चीजें एकदम डिटेल में आप नहीं गए, पर आपको मोटा समझ में आ गया कि हाँ ठीक है, maybe there is a woman sitting and कुछ तो पहना हुआ है, and maybe she's smiling, maybe she's not smiling, something is going on, वैसे, right? That's a beginner's interpretation. A trained reader's interpretation will be more like इतना exact नहीं होगा. I'm not saying that the trained reader will know exactly what the author is trying to say at a 100% level. अगर मेरे को और इमेज मिलता तो मैं थोड़ा आउटलाइन वाला इमेज डालता यहाँ पे, but that's not available on the internet. So yeah, but at least the trained reader would know that कि might not be 100% sure about what the author wants to say, वहाँ पे 90% पहुँचेगा, but इतना उसको sure होगा, like in terms of what he doesn't want to say or what he does not mean, he'll be like 10% sure, right? So a beginner, so it can be summed up in this statement, like someone who's a beginner, someone who's जिसने ये order वाले aspects नहीं use किए हैं, for them the RC says maybe conveys information X, मतलब कोई particular information convey कर रहा है, let's call that information X. For someone who's trained in these methods, या फिर जिस तरीके से अगर force करके उसको train किया गया, वो order सिखाया गया, for them the statement will be, okay, yes, the RC does convey the statement X, but there are like वो एक चीज तो convey कर रहा है, पर कम से कम ऐसी 50 चीजें और हैं जो वो convey नहीं कर रहा. And if you ask the beginner, like okay, does the RC also convey the statement Y? They might be like यहाँ जाके देखना पड़ेगा, sure नहीं है, right? Or they might just overlook that. They might not be able to differentiate between X and Y, X and X dash or X and X dash, X double dash, etc. but someone who's trained will be able to. And so यहाँ पे जैसे for example यहाँ पे what do you see, so the difference between the interpretation of someone who's just who's trained and someone who's not trained would not be in terms of what is. Both of them will be able to tell you कि हाँ, there's a woman sitting here in black robes and there's a scenic background involved. It will be more in terms of what is not there. Okay. So अगर यहाँ if you ask someone who's not very trained and अभी तक उतना skill develop नहीं किया है कि is it a smiling woman, they might feel like ये नहीं, एक बार check करना पड़ेगा. The someone who's trained will tell you कि okay, that's for that we don't have enough information, right? We don't have enough information whether the woman is smiling or not, right? So if it is अगर question में ऐसा पूछा है कि okay, according to the author the woman is smiling in the painting. Someone who's not trained will want to like कि हाँ पता नहीं कर रही है कि नहीं, वो जानबूझ के देखने की try करेगा. And someone who's trained in these methods would say कि no, we can't infer that the woman is smiling according to the author. Similarly, sitting with a backrest, someone like so again, someone who's not trained might have to like go and check कि हाँ ठीक है backrest था कि नहीं था. यहाँ पे बोल सकते हैं कि नहीं, that is like we don't have enough information with respect to that, or maybe we can eliminate it because of something. Dirty black robes, the robes. If the question stem says the woman is wearing the woman might be wearing dirty black robes, so might be दिया हुआ है. So now the training learner would understand कि हाँ ठीक है, might भी तो हो सकता है because वहाँ पे the color is not the same and there seems to be some discoloration, so might be. So yeah, fair enough. In case of the untrained, so the difference is not like passage क्या convey कर रहा है, वहाँ पे तो आपको चीजें मिल जाएंगी, like there'll be an agreement, but like at a higher resolution level कि it is conveying exactly this, इसमें आपने हल्का सा भी change किया, then it will only be the trained learner will be able to interpret that कि हाँ नहीं इतना ही बोला है उसने और कुछ नहीं बोला है, right? So and those tweaks and those changes are basically what these various types of errors in the options are, right? So the options which are incorrect in nature, which are not in accordance with the passage, like there are only so many limited number of ways in which you can create an erroneous option. या फिर आप distort करके कोई word डाल दोगे, या फिर आप उसका cause and effect उल्टा कर दोगे, या फिर आप कोई बाहर से information ले आएंगे, या फिर आप कुछ चीजें assume डाल देंगे वहाँ पे. And once we label these, it almost becomes like a case कि हाँ ठीक है, like video game में होता है ना कि हाँ इसके बाद इस level के बाद ये तीन तरह के villains आते हैं, इसके साथ ऐसे खेलना है, इसको ऐसे eliminate करना है, इसको ऐसे eliminate करना है. So that's what it becomes. And so
there is also another error that is usually committed. Like एक तो आपने जैसे बताया, the beginner's interpretation of it being entirely hazy and stuff. So what happens is once people start giving mocks and once they start getting acclimatized with the process, the idea sets in that okay, things need to be looked at a much greater detail. Now what happens in that is in the process of getting the trained mind's interpretation, what they usually do is they'll get into the stream in the background and they'll try to look, is there something there that I'm missing out on, which the question might not actually even ask. It is not clear. If it is not very clear to you, it is also probably not very clear to the examiner जिसने question set किया. So if there is ambiguity there, then you don't need to go ahead and fix the ambiguity कि हाँ यहाँ पे मुझे समझ में नहीं आया. Leave it as it is. Go to the question and understand if they are at all asking anything from there. If they're not, it's none of your business to figure out. Go outside the exam, read a book on that, and then do whatever you want to analyze.
Some research or literary theory, वो सब करना है तो वो अलग वो exam के बाहर.
For now, all you want to do is the idea that you said, especially, and this was the idea that was in my head when I was giving that I am not there trying to analyze the piece of work that is given to me in the form of an RC. I am there trying to find out ये चारों ऑप्शन के पीछे कौन से पे राइट ऑप्शन मार्क किया हुआ है एग्जामिनर. That's all I need to do, and I need to understand in those 2 or 3 hours, whatever it is, my job is to find out which option has the right option written behind it.
Correct.
So you need to understand the objective with which you are sitting for the examination, which I think काफी cases में ऐसे होते हैं that whenever we are giving a mock, you look into the analysis of a question that is given in the mock. You get a feeling that what it is that they are trying to do. Are they trying to analyze the piece of work and trying to get inferences from there, or are they being very objective and giving you questions from the area that is actually pretty certain? And which once again, ऐसे cases में I have always, like, we had the discussion question by question, that is not just from a very broad perspective. We have brought up questions कि sir इसमें कैसे
हाँ
करना है.
हाँ
This is where I'm stuck. So either there is a very clear solution to it, and it has often happened that I have been pretty wrong. Like मुझे लगता था that this is an uncertain area, that probably एक unwarranted question है. But then you gave me a reasoning that no, there was something there that I could have referred to, and I could have. So the error happened on both ends. It's just that there has to be an optimum point beyond which you don't go, and the volatility there doesn't, like, if you are on the higher end, you will not immediately come back to the x-axis and just stay there. You're going to go down. You're going to go down to the negative x, and you're then going to come back. So it's almost like a decreasing volatility function that will happen.
Correct.
It's not necessary that this is going to happen in one go, which is usually the expectation. वो मेरा भी expectation था. Like I still remember when I was sitting in your class, and I think there was one Zach passage, the Derrida one, I think, that we were discussing. So there was a lot of expectation with which I marked the answer. And then the answers were revealed, and I think I got only one correct or something. I'm like, "ये क्या हो गया मेरे से?" So I was pretty certain while marking it, and I still remember, like, I was about to go to dinner after class, and like the whole dinner I was thinking, am I doing everything wrong? Is my preparation going down? Have I got messed up in the logic and everything? And you sort of take a macro view from that. Okay, I could have got that passage in actual XAT as well. But so would have the other 1 lakh students who would be sitting for the exam.
Correct.
So it's not just me. And once you get into that confidence, if you have committed the error, it's not going to pull you down that much, because there are many others who have committed that error.
Correct.
It's more about what are the questions that you got correct that the others couldn't.
So guys, see, I'll try to again speak on the same points, comment on the same points that Arghya has put out here. पहला तो Arghya talked about right. See, and then we have observed it in so many passages. अगर आपका passage difficult है ना, if the RC is difficult, it's not easy for the question setter to create options which might go to such a level of nuance and resolution and still be able to defend it, because वो उसके लिए मुश्किल है, right? Because he has to defend that answer against 2 lakhs aspirants, right? पूरे country में से, and many of these
who will all be very, very detailed scrutiny, who will all be performing a very detailed scrutiny.
Exactly. And he doesn't necessarily have a recourse to go back to the author of the passage. कि हाँ भाई, क्या आप क्या बोलना चाह रहे थे कि मुझे बताओ, right? So when the passage become difficult, तो सिर्फ आपके लिए difficult नहीं है, वो question setter के लिए भी difficult हो जाता है, and that's for the same reason. What we've observed over the few years is, जब भी आपका passage difficult होता है ना, the options end up becoming quite easy, becoming quite easy, right? And it becomes very easy to eliminate that. So where Arghya pointed out कि ठीक है, if there are parts to the passage जहाँ पे the author has gone quite dense, आपको चिंता नहीं करनी है, आपका कंपटीशन ऑथर के साथ है ही नहीं. योर कंपटीशन इज विद द क्वेश्चन सेटर. क्वेश्चन सेटर को जितना समझ में आया है, नॉट इवन दैट, इन फैक्ट, आर यू एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट द क्वेश्चन सेटर अंडरस्टूड हियर? Can you guess at what he might have interpreted here? And that's where how Arghya pointed out here, your job in your solving and marking the answers is not to mark the option that will be correct on an absolute level. Arghya ने जब यहाँ पे ये बोला कि मुझे बस ये देखना है कि वो जो आपका सिस्टम के अंदर क्वेश्चन का जो की डाला हुआ है, वहां पे like against which option has the question setter marked the right answer. यहाँ ये right answer है. मुझे बस वो जाता है, not by obviously cheating etc, but by trying to understand कि हाँ ठीक है यार, इसने यहाँ तक तो नहीं सोचा होगा, या फिर इसने यहाँ तक सोचा होगा, right? So and solving in RC is not just, it's not always, in fact often not about being able to like get understanding or comprehending even the minutest details of the RC. It's mainly about कि नहीं, क्वेश्चन सेटर किस डेप्थ तक यहाँ पे गया हुआ है, वहां तक जाओ, मार्क करके आगे निकलो. Otherwise, you'll end up wasting time, and you will end up like there's always an opportunity cost involved, right? कोई और question जो आसान वाला question आपके हाथ से निकल जाएगा.
And that has happened. Like it happens to the best of us. And I've talked with a lot of people. Actually, this idea, me and my roommate, he is my college friend. Today we were discussing a mock, and this observation came up once again, that the most difficult of passages, there was a passage that dealt with some very astute philosophical idea and the nitty-gritty details of it, and that made it very confusing. But once you get to the question, like, we had a very high accuracy in the passage that was the most difficult one. That's because the level of the question has gone down. There's only so much that you can analyze, and the thing you need to realize is, even if the person who has said the question, he has understood the passage to his own subjective understanding, you will still have to come up with questions and answers that the majority can agree with.
एग्जैक्टली राइट. सो वो अपना सब्जेक्टिविटी वहाँ नहीं ला सकता,
हाँ,
वो
वहाँ नहीं
आपको
ला सकता, especially for exams that are this credible, that are this scrutinized by
करेक्ट.
so many people and so many providers. You cannot afford to bring in that subjectivity, and that won't be the case. So usually when you disagree with a certain option that is there, I'll refer to only the CAT and the XAT papers here, and not with the mock providers. There are often weird things that happen there, and learners realize that down the line. But yeah, so when you're disagreeing with an option that is there in the CAT question paper or in the XAT question paper, 99.5% of the cases it will be because you have missed out on a detail. So that's something. From there, the major learning points come out to be. Those are your score improvement areas. Correct. So, and also, obviously, reading. Reading the Hindu or Telegraph probably won't be as effective, which usually is the most common suggestion.
I really wish like we could वो like वहाँ से graduate करके कहीं और पहुँचे industry. But so see, the thing is again, it's not like reading से कुछ होता ही नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. Obviously reading से काफी कुछ होता है, but the thing is well, you have a limited amount of time, and the more targeted and so reading will help you develop expertise and comprehension and whatever factors are involved here in solving RCs properly over a period of time. But the thing is कि it's like this, like if you're preparing for a sprint and आपको बोला जाए कि आपको sprint के लिए practice करना है, आपको बोला जाए कि ठीक है दौड़ते रहो, तो फिर हाँ obviously उससे फर्क पड़ेगा, दौड़ते रहो उसे. But it will take a lot of time. Maybe after 1 year you'll realize कि नहीं मेरा form शायद थोड़ा सा गलत था. And then in the next year you'll realize कि okay, I also have to work on my fast twitch fibers जो आपके which are involved in like giving that impulse in running, right? So ये आपको so the rate at which you'll progress, the more low resolution and generic the advice is, the lesser the rate at which you will progress. It's not like you will not progress. It's not like the advice given by these by the educators जो सब जगह है वो गलत है पूरी तरह, ऐसा नहीं है, वो सही एडवाइस है. बट आपका जो रेट है प्रोग्रेस करने का उसमें बहुत टाइम लग जाएगा. And that's why so that's why it is a long term solution, and it is better suited for someone who has a long term available to them. Like school students or college students जो कि maybe first year में ऐसे पूछे ठीक है यार read करना शुरू कर. So and so that's why you need advice more in terms of कि okay, maybe you want to do a lot of jumping jacks, अगर sprint का analogy लेके चलो, maybe you want to like do very explosive jumps, right, to improve your fast twitch fibers का reflexes आपको बढ़ाना है. तो जो nerve to muscle वाला जो आपका electricity transmission हो रहा है जिसकी वजह से आप you are able to move your feet quickly, maybe that needs to work upon. And उसके लिए कौन से तरीके हैं, उसके लिए maybe you need to work on exercises that make you change direction very quickly. ये किया वैसे किया, right? So that's an analogy of it. Obviously like RC में आपको ये सब नहीं करना. So RC के अंदर like exactly okay this is the content that you should be reading, ठीक है. Maybe जहाँ पे the comprehend it is dense in certain respects. There are many ideas involved in a short piece of content. So if you get content that is tailored according to the needs of developing a good comprehension, तो उससे बहुत फर्क पड़ जाएगा. इंस्टेड ऑफ रीडिंग कि हाँ यार ये 5 वेबसाइट्स आप पकड़ लीजिए जिसमें से रोज पढ़ते रहना, ठीक है.
It's not going to help, and the problem with that approach, one thing that you mentioned, एक तो उस पे availability बहुत ज्यादा रहना चाहिए, and also another problem because the kind of articles that you usually read in newspapers, they have a certain amount of bias subjectivity. I'll be frank enough with it. उस पे रहता है वो, and the problem with that is maybe आपकी reading speed में थोड़े दिक्कत है, but it is going to show that as the only problem that you have. You're missing out on 10 other problems that are very serious ones, and that could have probably solved the problem much easier. So अगर आप 100 मीटर दौड़ने के लिए 10 सेकंड से ज्यादा ले रहे हो, what newspaper will tell you is the problem in your shoes, but the problem was probably in the technique that which you used to run. So changing the shoes will take that time. If you're taking 20 seconds now, it will bring it down to 18 seconds, and it will do that over a period of 1 year. But you wanted to get to 10 seconds in 3 months.
Correct.
That will only happen if you're exposing yourself to a lot of books and other articles. If you're practicing things that are RC oriented. So
Correct.
maybe just address mocks as they are. Take up the address the process as it is.
Correct, exactly. That's right, that's right. नहीं, and मैं इसको अगर explain करूँ, like for those who might be listening, कि in terms of अगर RC में exactly factors क्या हैं, so see there are a lot of things that come into the picture. Many times these RCs are picked up, ये ऐसे content पे से उठाए जाते हैं जहाँ पे, see sometimes the RC can be simply narrative, कहानी बताई है कि एक बार ये हुआ फिर यहाँ गया यहाँ गया यहाँ गया. You can have in 500 words you can have content which is just a very simple story that maybe I woke up in the morning, I went and had some lunch and I came back and maybe met someone. That can cover 500 words, and then in the same 500 words you can have content which talks about, okay, there are scientists believe that there are three types of factors which are generally responsible for the growth of cancer cells in a tumor. And however, the first two factors have been studied only in these areas, while the third factor has not been studied so far. Scientists, many researchers have recently come up with methods, right? So यहाँ पे भी 500 शब्द ही हैं, but यहाँ पे the cause and effect and like there's it's almost like two pictures. One is like has been clicked with a lot of megapixels, right? There is a lot of content involved there. तो उसका size कितना ज़्यादा होगा, और यहाँ पे एक picture है जहाँ पे बस थोड़े बहुत blocks हैं, that's it, right? So दोनों का area same है, but there is a lot of content that is involved there. And अगर मैं आपको बोलूँ कि नहीं ठीक है, आपको अगर if I मैं बोलूँ कि आप कोई भी कंटेंट रीड करने लग जाइए, देन व्हाट इज द जॉब ऑफ द इंस्ट्रक्टर, लाइक वो चीज तो फिर वही होगी कि हाँ आरसी आ रहे हैं सॉल्व कर रहे हैं, जस्ट बिकॉज एन एजुकेटर और अ टीचर इज एबल टू सॉल्व आरसीज quickly and accurately doesn't necessarily, in some cases might, but doesn't necessarily mean that they know what are the factors involved, जिसको अगर ट्वीक करके चेंज किया जाए तो स्टूडेंट भी वो कर पाएगा. Right, so and this is almost come as a revelation to me in the last 2 years of teaching, right? So we have tried a lot of methods जहाँ पे order को थोड़ा सा लाते हैं, थोड़ा discipline लाते हैं, वैसे करके they help, but over the time we figured out कि नहीं, अगर यार इसमें ये करा दिया जाए तो okay, यहाँ पे काफी बढ़ जा रहा है, इससे काफी फायदा हो रहा है. And that's how even the courses that I make, like if I look at the what do you say, the classes that I took like a year ago or year and a half ago, और अगर मैं वापस से वो चीज बनाने जाता हूँ तो मुझे हर बार like at least so far in these interventions I've been able to figure out content and ideas which are more in depth and which are and not just in depth for the sake of like क्या बोलते हैं बाल की खाल उखाड़ना बोलते हैं ना, वैसे नहीं ना, just but they have a practical angle to it. अच्छा ये किया गया तो इसमें ये फर्क पड़ जाएगा. So yeah,
and I'll mention something ingenious that you did. तो जहाँ पे a lot of people, including myself, we had a problem in understanding certain statements in the RC, which usually is the problem. So we had a course even for that, right? When you came up with true and false. The entire problem that is there, that can be addressed with true and false questions. You don't need 4 options there. You don't need to understand. And that solves a lot of issues. The first thing is it makes you aware of every word that is there in the question set. Is there a might, or the might has been omitted? Is it a blanket statement, or does it have areas or pockets that can be a bit tricky? Is there a cause-effect reversal there? So you become aware of every word, every punctuation that is there in the question mark, in the question stem, and you also relate that with whatever is mentioned in the passage. So the whole true and false idea, I think it was immensely helpful, and not just for me. Like we had a lot of feedbacks coming in, a lot of students. I think there was a point where we wanted more of true and false questions rather than a question set with 4 options there, because that there was some clear utility to it, and it was fun solving them. So there were two sides to it, and once you solve a lot of those questions, you start noticing the exact patterns in the mock questions, in CAT questions, and that sort of makes you sort of realize that the pattern is that predictable in a section that is usually considered to be the most subjective one. Like you go to any strategy video, any mock preparation video, well, the usual suggestion that comes across is VRC में हाँ accuracy तो कम रहेंगे, so you need to deal with that. That's not the case. VRC में accuracy कम, it's not a necessity. There's some like very workable areas that can help you crack that section.
Correct, exactly. And so yeah, so what Arghya is talking about, guys, again, like so इसमें हमने एक बार ये किया था, so like for see, essentially eliminating options is just about figuring out whether a particular option is true as per the passage or not true as per the passage. तो अगर आप एकदम fundamental level पे उसको आप ले जाएं, then it is just about that, right? So like what can be a minimally invasive way of having the student practice focus on this specific area? Like it seems like a micro area, but that is that's something that is the section built on, right? At least RC part वो पूरा का पूरा उसी पे built है. तो अगर आपको बस वो चीज practice करा दी जाए कि ये statement दिया हुआ है, like to have you to make you go to the level of detail every single time for every statement, and to have you do that multiple number of times, right? So that gets you in a position जहाँ पे once the complexity increases कि हाँ 4 ऑप्शन आ गए, तो again you have to do it 4 times basically, right? So जो skill आपको develop करानी है उस पे लेके आना है with while decreasing all the other aspects, बाकी चीजों को picture से हटा के, and then have you develop that particular skill and then introduce you again into the context. So yes, that's I think
and that is what the CAT exam wants out of you, right? It is not asking for a philosopher who is going to challenge the ideas that are existing. It's basically asking for a very smart problem solver. Correct. So it requires, I think, two things. One is, are you honest with your weaknesses? Are you brave enough to admit that, okay, this is somewhere that I'm going wrong? And no one's going to do that for you. You need to identify those weaknesses for yourself. And what I found differentiating here is that the solutions for those problems were readily available. But the problems have to come from your side. And while doing that exercise, we spotted a lot of problems which are common to a lot of people. Because the set of problems that you can once again encounter are very coherent. उसमें ऐसा नहीं होता है that one problem that candidate faces is very peculiar that no one else is facing. Probably a lot of others is facing. It's just that we had the space and the forum to discuss that problem. कि हाँ ये मेरे साथ हो रहा है, because we knew a lot of others were coming in with their own problems, an own peculiar set of problems, and we had a very quick way to address that, and address that in a way that generated a format which helped a lot others. Like I myself, I have benefited from the problems that other learners have had, because I didn't realize that probably this was an error I was doing, but once that is discussed, I realized हाँ ये तो होता है मेरे साथ. When I'm sitting with the mock, this is probably where I'm going wrong. So let me try this format. So someone came and said that, okay, should I read questions first or should I read the passage first? And I thought, why not a mix of both? Why not you read the first two questions of the passage, first two lines of the passage, then go to the questions, understand, okay, this is the broad idea that the question is explaining, then go back, read the passage, solve it. So in this mix and match kind of thing, it will only happen when there is a very honest discussion that is happening between a group of very serious learners. जैसे क्या होता है, the other cases that we have, there is one person who is going to analyze the mock and is giving his own version of it. The problem with that in VARC, in DILR, and to some extent in QA, is that that person knows the right answer. So his idea is why the right answer is right. He is not concerned with why the other three options have been confusing. Why have you gotten stuck at a point, जैसे DILR set में, why are you stuck with one clue that you cannot fit in? उसको पता है algorithm क्या है, but मेरा problem algorithm क्या है वो जानने से solve नहीं होगा. मेरा problem इससे solve होगा that how am I going to arrange that in my head? How is that algorithm going to come in my head? मेरे को वो चाहिए, मेरे को algorithm नहीं चाहिए. I need to understand the process, and I think this whole idea that जैसे we have asked you a number of times कि सर आप एक बार RC demo देके solve कर दो. That's not because we are looking for the right answer. We are asking for what is it that is going on inside your head while you're solving that.
Correct.
Because that is the most important part.
Correct. Fair enough. And that has in fact led to a lot of insights for me as well. So yeah. It's a weird way of saying कि I learned कि मैं कर क्या रहा हूँ वहाँ पे वैसे कर. Anyhow, but यहाँ पे एक और चीज I'll try to मैं ये जो आगे what you said ना कि ये जो difference वाला है उसको मैं एक analogy से explain करने का try करता हूँ. See, the job of the instructor is not to stand on the peak of a mountain and show कि अरे आ जाओ यहाँ से आ जाओ.
This is so apt. I cannot explain how apt this is.
Okay, that's not the job of the instructor. The job of the instructor is to figure out कि भाई वो कहाँ पे फंसा है, वहाँ पे problem क्या हो रहा है. And metaphorically go there exactly and then जाके बाद में ठीक है ये हो गया, अभी खुल गया ना, अभी ठीक है ऊपर आना. And move on to the next one, next student. And what the instructor will find in the process is कि भाई ये आधे लोग तो उसी problem में फंसे हो. So now
this is such an apt analogy.
ही करके बाद में नीचे जाके उसको, so you need to know where exactly the learner is stuck.
Yeah.
Like what's going on in his psyche कि अच्छा actually हुआ क्या सोचा होगा तुमने, अच्छा तुमने ये सोच के मार्क किया. And then that's what I've observed when I'm analyzing these options. तो I try to do that so far as जहाँ तक वो हो पाता है कि अच्छा ठीक है, okay, maybe you went with this idea, या फिर ये सोच
Hmm.
के उसको मार्क किया था
Hmm.
क्या, ऐसा कुछ
Hmm.
करके, right? So that's what an instructor is supposed to, help or do with the students.
And
So
it came to a point like I think you remember that when there was a phase when my score suddenly went down in the ARC,
हाँ
and then when I was discussing the errors with you, you were like, "Wait, I think this is the option that you marked, and this is the correct answer." So you
हाँ
knew the kind of problem that I would be facing, and that's a great support to have. And that was not just with me; that was with all the learners involved.
So yeah, like, see, so the point here to take home is कि there is a predictability that is involved.
Hmm.
The only thing is you should be willing to look beyond a certain point कि
Hmm.
मतलब एक बार देखो तो सही उसके आगे क्या है, मतलब वहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम क्या फेस हो रही है. And by the way, this is exactly what you also want to do in conversations when you're having with people. If you want to get them to a certain point of view, you first need to understand कि उनको लाना कहाँ से है, वो
Hmm.
है कहाँ पे. उसके बाद आप उसको यहाँ पे ला पाओगे ना, बस बोलते लोग यहाँ, मैं तो यहाँ पे, मैं तो यहाँ पे, तो आ जाओ तो उड़ के आ जाएगा सुपरमैन. तो वैसा
Yeah.
नहीं होगा ये. So I think that plays a very instrumental role
Hmm.
in communication and obviously in RCs and in instruction as such. So वो एक चीज था. And then एक और point था, हाँ, this reminds me, there was this trainer, एक जिम का trainer था, in my hometown. So where I would not, hometown में बहुत बार हमेशा तो हम लोग नहीं रहते हैं, right? I think वैसे
Uh-huh.
सिचुएशन में सोसाइटी पहुंच चुकी है. So every once in a while you go to your hometown, and then I was in this phase where I had to like नहीं, workout तो होना है, कुछ हो या ना. So एक there was this gym, and where I go, जब hometown जा रहा हूँ तभी वहाँ पे जाऊँगा, तो ठीक है. So trainers से मिलते थे कभी कभी. And so कुछ चीजें ये लोग जो कहते हैं ना मुझे याद रह जाती है, and they are like very impactful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's this one thing that they like while I would be working out, कुछ तो back वाले कुछ रोज चल रहे हैं, जो भी चल रहे हैं, उसमें we were having a discussion on कि नहीं, maybe you should use rods, or maybe machine वाला होना चाहिए, या फिर free weights dumbbells होने चाहिए. He said, उसने एक point बोला कि यार भाई मैं एक बात बताऊं कि एक्चुअली अगर आपको पता है ना कि वो जो चीज़ पड़ी है आपके पास, उसके साथ क्या करना है, कैसे करना है, तो फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि वो रॉड है या डंबल है या मशीन है. एक पत्थर भी अगर दे दो, और आपको अगर पता है कि ट्रेनर को पता है कि क्या कराना है, वो एक पत्थर से भी आपको वो काम करा के देता है, राइट? सो ऑब्वियसली लाइक मे बी थोड़ा सा हाइपरबोल हुआ, थोड़ा सा एग्जैजरेशन हुआ कि ऑब्वियसली पत्थर से पूरा नहीं
But
होगा,
it's apt. It's
बट
very
द
relevant.
पॉइंट इज लाइक दैट इज इम्पोर्टेंट, राइट? सो that's कि that's useful होना चाहिए. चलो, I hopefully even people, even I actually believe that even instructors who might end up watching this, थोड़ा सा अगर कोई कभी छोटा मोटा अगर ले सके, I'm sure you guys are doing some, आप लोग भी कुछ कर रहे होंगे शायद, तो मुझे नहीं पता जो सही, but
And it's
यहाँ
not just with RCs that we have done this. We have done this with parajumbles. We have done this with odd one outs.
exactly
We have done this with summaries. So the whole idea of putting plus and minus and those stuffs, and
correct.
once you get exposed to those things, like there is obviously a lot more chaos when it comes to VA than there is in RC, and I think people will slowly realize that. वो शुरू में realize नहीं होता है. But there's a lot of things that you need to take care of when you're addressing a parajumble question. But once you get the hang of RCs, maybe it's a very streamlined process.
Correct.
But even there, I think you have found chaos. And this is something, the whole idea that finding order where there is chaos and understanding the difference between what order is and what chaos is. Order doesn't necessarily have to be everything arranged in a straight line. Order can be any particular pattern that makes sense to you.
Correct.
And this is an idea I've also spoken in when it came to my personal interviews.
Okay.
That I could bring in that analogy, so it has that diverse application. The idea of order and chaos, and it's more of what ideology you are choosing to give the exam with. I still remember in XAT when I was stuck in one question, and it was a very annoying question. Like I knew that I wanted to mark it, and there were three options, not even two. There were three options that were really creating a problem. and that usually happens with passages like that, especially when there is 5 options given to you. So you remember the character Mike, right? And we talked a lot about Mike, and there were a lot of things that I look up to in Mike. So I remember sitting in the exam hall and I was thinking, what would Mike do? Since this is such an annoying scenario, you would probably like mark whatever makes sense and move on. It might not be correct, it might be correct, But at least one thing that Mike would for sure think is it's makes no sense to get stuck there for 5 minutes. So you take a shot there, maybe, and you don't have to get 100% of the questions correct. So obviously there will be some amount of uncertainty there. But the idea is you let yourself flow, and you understand what is expected out of that situation, and you make the best of what you've got.
Correct. That's right. That's right. And then like that also takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
When you're taking the test or answering giving the exam, and which has a lot to do with like you will be able to make the best of what you already have.
Yeah.
Now, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think that was the difference between CAT and XAT. So in CAT, when I was sitting, I knew there's a lot riding on the examination, and that is true for every serious candidate. There will be a lot riding on the examination, and you need to accept that. But you also need to accept that being panicky about it is not going to get you anywhere. If you worry about getting a question right 100 times, that is not the means to getting the question right. That is probably the means to getting the question wrong. So what you need to think of is, I know there is a lot riding on it, and I myself need to probably work on this. But I understand that there is a lot riding on it, but I also understand that zeroing in on that thought is not going to lead me anywhere. It's going to lead me to a track that's quite opposite to the one where I wanted to lead. And if you look at my XAT and CAT scores, when I gave XAT, I had no idea that, and I'm happy with my XAT score. Obviously, I'll be frank about it. And when I sat for the exam, I had no idea that this is the percentile that I wanted to get to. I knew there was an exam. Okay, fine, and I was not exactly happy with my CAT scenario then, because as it so happens with a GEM profile, it's never enough. So yeah, so the thing is, I was not entirely happy, and in CAT, what happened is every question starts getting a zoomed version in your head. Everything, there's a lot of things happening in your head, and except for the one thing that needs to happen. But in that, a lot of that pressure was off. So I was aware of whatever is happening, at least with the person sitting next to me. So I saw someone in real bad despair when they're trying to attempt the VARC paper, and someone who is fidgeting with something. So all that was being registered in the head, but the focus was still there. I knew that I need to mark this question. I need to understand this question. But it's almost like, let's say you've got 40 minutes in your recess, school time recess. And after that, there is one paragraph that you need to explain to a friend from something that you're reading. So how do you read that? You don't read that like your life depends on it, but you also don't read that like, हाँ ठीक है, recess के बाद देख लो. So you read that while interacting with others. You read that while being aware कि हाँ आसपास क्या हो रहा है, what are other people doing. But you complete the objective that is there for you.
Correct.
So there must be that optimal point, and even though the exam matters a lot, whichever situation you are in, you need to sort of get into a zone that is productive and not panicky. And there is no clear word to describe the situation with. This will vary from people to people what zone works the best. But it's almost like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption, right? So it's not that I won't be able to dig a hole through it in one day. It's just that there is a finite period of time in which I'll be able to dig a hole through it, and I'll get out of this spot.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter if you do it in one day. If he tried to do it in one day, he would probably have a cannon in there and get caught anyway. So it's not going to be helpful at all.
Correct. That's right. No, I agree, and then so see the state that Arghya is talking about, which you test taking, and which Arghya you have cited it as a major difference between your CAT and XAT scores and as a factor, right? Is basically a state जहाँ पे you are aware of what's going on, but you are not affected by it. So, and these things don't when you're affected by generally when you're affected by something too much, your awareness of everything else goes down, including the number of questions that you're yet to solve, including the how much time you have remaining. Okay, and अगर आप yeah, so that awareness level has to be high, and then the extent to which you are affected by things around you and the timer and everything has to be low,
Mm.
right? So that's I think that's
Yeah,
one
and
of the
also a lot of scenarios might arise when you're giving the exam. It doesn't. Let's say you're given 50 different mocks before your CAT, and when you enter the CAT, suddenly you have all your strategies in place and everything is fine. You scored 99 percentiles, 100 percentiles, but something just doesn't work out on that day. So you're 15 minutes into your exam. You would have probably solved two RCs, but then you're stuck with a single RC and you're confused with the options. So you have the 25 minutes left with you. So there is only two things that you can do. You can brood over the fact that 15 minutes is gone and you're stuck in one RC, or you can realize that you've got 25 minutes and there is a certain number of questions that you can get past, and you never know, you might ace the remaining two sections to a level that you have never done it so far,
correct.
provided you are not affected by what has happened in the 15 minutes. And if it has happened with you and you are a very serious candidate, it probably has happened with 99% of the people.
Correct.
So it doesn't really matter. There will be certain amount of uncertainties. The time I gave CAT, my laptop computer's mouse stopped working. And then I was told that my system would be changed, but the timer couldn't be stopped, and it didn't really make sense.
Oh, wow.
So these things will happen, and I hope it doesn't happen with anybody. But you need to understand, even if this doesn't happen, something is going to happen. So there will be something, which is why you can also practice. Like, this is something I used to do: is midway into the mock, think of something that creeps you out. Put yourself in that tense zone. Come out of it. It's almost like an exercise. We talked about working out. So the first time you run on a treadmill, you probably do it for 5 minutes, and then you do it for 10 minutes, then you do it for 15 minutes. So that happens like that. It also happened while I was swimming the other day. I told you that you're really scared that you get to the other point, whether you get to the other point. So you keep stopping in the middle. So maybe you will not drown, but the thought in your head that you might drown is the problem. That you forgot swimming it's never the case that you forgot to swim when you got to the middle of the pool. If you learn to swim in the first half, you have also learned to swim in the next half. That skill is not going away. The problem is the thought that's in your head. So if you can start dealing with the thought, if you can start putting it away, if you can start realizing, okay, I have got this, no matter what the current situation I am in. I have put myself in this situation before. I have come out of this situation. Or if the situation is entirely new, then this is what it is. The reality is like it is, and I need to make the best out of it. So the demon really is inside your head, and you need to deal with that.
That's right. Like, and like practicing these many scenarios is going to make a difference, because what happens because these scenarios, practicing these scenarios will affect what you do in those 3 hours or 2 hours now, and what you do in those 2 hours is going to determine everything else, right? So yeah. So what you
And
said.
also is the case with like, I have spoken to a lot of people. I have myself been in that scenario that the first 10 mocks that you give, those mocks are going to be scary. Those mocks are going to be volatile. Those mocks are going to throw a lot of issues that you didn't think it's going to come your way. But the thing is, people need to realize that they are moving in a positive direction when they're sitting for the mock. Just sitting for a mock and going through the questions, marking whatever you can. It doesn't matter whether you've scored a 20, whether you scored 100, whether you scored a 200. It matters that if you have scored a 20, there was 100 more marks that you could have scored that you didn't score. So you need to find out. And I realized this, that the worst mocks are probably the best areas of opportunity. If you scored 150 in a mock, that's out of 198, you wouldn't be able to find too many areas of improvements. You will obviously find some, but you scored 80 in a mock, you scored 75 in a mock. Those are the because I have myself been in contact with a person who was scoring in 70 percentiles, 60 percentiles in August. That person has gone on to score a 99.82. And I'm not even kidding a bit about this. It's just that how you look at those questions, how you figure out that these are the problem areas that I need to work on. And CAT is expecting managers out of you. It's not expecting academicians. You might prove one to be. Those don't have to be mutually exclusive. But the idea is to extract someone who can solve problems fast, who can solve problems in a smart way.
Correct. Exactly. Absolutely. And that's the definition of a manager, by the way.
Yeah.
So being resourceful. So yeah, that's right. So yes, so yeah, I think we have covered quite a bit
Yeah.
in this session, and I hope if whoever might have listened or might be listening, you have some takeaways to take away. And right, so and yes, so far as Sluggers is concerned, the YouTube has been a little dormant since the last couple of months, but I think I should will be able to put up some videos, start some videos starting from maybe Tuesday. Uh,
I think
uh,
you're busy with the PI programs a lot as well.
oh yeah, there's a lot of things. The PI program, GDMAT PI, we did that in
Yeah.
Jan, and we'll have some session for that as well. So yeah, so Vaisa hai, but we'll start putting up some videos day after tomorrow most probably, and
Hmm.
yes, and then we'll also start some batches uh, uh, maybe the next week onwards. So this week you'll probably get a chance to sample some content on YouTube, and then if you believe that this is something that can help you, that can improve your odds in cracking the CAT exam. The VARC section is basically what we'll be starting with. Then definitely you're welcome to join. So that's about it from my side. Arghya, any parting words for students who might be in the journey?
No,
Just
I think it's the whole preparation journey is a very fun one. It's not like your for the engineers, it's not like your JE preparation. For everyone else, it's not like your college semesters. It's a very enjoyable process. It teaches you a lot. There have been things beyond CAT that I have learned through the process that will probably be applicable for a lot of other domains across life, and for that I'm grateful. But yeah, I think the most important part is falling in love with the process of the examination,
oh,
and it in my personal experience, it's going to teach you a lot of life lessons. It's going to put you through a lot of tests. There will be uh, emotional breakdowns. There will be highs and lows. There will be hiccups along the way. But the idea is, no matter what the outcome, when you come out of that examination, the last Sunday of November,
mm.
you'll be coming out as a person who is very different from the person who started preparing. And that is the idea behind it. So, yeah, the primacy of journey over the primacy of
Yes,
destination.
that's essentially what many of the philosophers have figured as the meaning of everything, like for humans, like setting up a goal and then chasing it, and in the process
Yeah.
learning and growing as part of
Yeah,
that
so
process.
at the end of it, you will find yourself being able to articulate arguments on capitalism.
Oh,
You'll talk a lot about Ayn Rand's philosophy. You'll talk about
yes.
sapiens, human evolution, sociology. I don't know. You'll talk about smart methods to solve a problem.
Mm,
Uh, it's a fun process, whatever comes out of it. And the end, no matter if one outcome is in line with what we expected it to be or not,
mm.
there will be 100 others that will be very beautiful. And I hope it's 101 outcomes that fall in life.
Correct. That's right. We hope for the 101 one, right? So the Ithaka
Yeah,
poem comes to mind. Like Ithaka
yeah,
has nothing left, will not have anything left to give you. Like
yeah.
the journey would
Yeah,
have.
the idea is you get everything that you can,
Mm,
but not like मुझे outcome चाहिए. It's
that's
just
right.
that let's see where I can get.
That's
You put yourself to a challenge,
mm,
you accept the challenge, you accept everything
mm,
that comes with that challenge.
mm,
And the challenge is not an easy one. No one's saying that it's an easy one,
mm.
but that doesn't mean it's an ugly one. It's a really beautiful one.
Correct. That's right. Definitely. Okay. So on that high note, for everyone, so we'll close the session for today, guys. I think कोई question नहीं. I'll just check once कि comments में कुछ आया तो नहीं है. Like, no, I don't think there is anything. So
Yeah,
yeah, so that thanks Arun Arghya for this,
yeah.
and
No issues.
for
It was lovely talking. It always is.
yeah, same here. Like it's fun, right? It's all the tangents that we take. So I'm not sure about the viewers. So
I think once they get used to this, they'll love this.
oh yeah, so hope so. हाँ वैसा तो होता है
It
अभी
grows
तक तो
on
ऐसा
you.
होता है.
Yeah.
Statistics are on our side at least so far as we can see.
Yeah, they definitely are.
So वैसे देखते हैं. ठीक है, चलो, great to have you here, and guys,
Yeah.
like stay tuned for the upcoming video in the upcoming days, in the next few days. So that's about it.
And
Thanks.
all the best to everyone.
Yeah, all the best, guys. चलो.